road racing, 4x4s, quads, bikes, varying conditions and time trials. It's the 1998 Sugarbelt 400. 6 a.m. start for Saturday's action, and as the sun began to rise over the horizon, breakfast was served while the cars were being warmed up in the holding area at the start. First to get ready for the start was the Jimco V8 of Schilling and navigator Ashley Thorne. Starting first is seldom an advantage, as all that happens is that the route becomes more obvious to those following. However, with the expected dust problem, Schilling was more than happy to start first. A unique feature of this race is that the cars and bikes are separated. Cars start first and complete 2 laps of the east loop prior to heading west, while the bikes tackle the west loop before moving on to the eastern part. Both drivers and riders rate this event highly.
The route is traditionally very well marked here in Natal. They use this double marker 100 meters before the turn, and then a double marker on the turn, and immediately after the turn a confirmation. They also give you a lot of other markers like L for lurkers, being big rocks, hidden rocks in the grass, and an asterisk for a very tight corner. So, as I say, traditionally it's very well marked, so we shouldn't have a problem, and of course we're going to have a huge advantage with no dust in front of us.
6 a.m. and with the sun low on the horizon, Schilling and Thorne power away from the start. Ahead lies 400 kilometers of racing over unknown territory as the Botswana team leaves just 30 seconds later. It's the navigator's task to pick out the route. Robin Houghton makes it sound very, very simple indeed.
The driver is worried about, his driving capabilities. There's a navigator being so dependent on route schedules, marking, things like that. It's very tricky. You don't know what's out there. Maybe it's well marked, maybe it's badly marked. Maybe you're going to spend the whole day looking for the route. So it's a little bit tense. Luckily this event's normally well marked. So as a navigator, I'm quite looking forward to it in fact.
Manfred Schroeder knows the area very well.
I mean, we've had this race for about 8 years now, and I've been racing since then about, so I also know the terrain quite well. And me being a farmer, cane farmer as well, also helps.
Headed by local hero Cox, the huge motorcycle entry set off to tackle the western section of the event. At the moment, there's no one else who can match the consistency and pace of the multiple Pinetown-based champion. Another local rider is Rob Campbell on the Shimwell's Yamaha 250 went well on the time trial. This loop was much more mountainous than the eastern loop, and it took riders over narrow tracks through forests. This lap proved much slower than the eastern one, which had some very high-speed sections through sugarcane plantations. The bikers also had the advantage of having the sun behind them, but already dust was becoming a problem, as there tends to be little or no wind at this time of the day and at this time of the year. Watch local Yamaha rider Barry Cool as he kicks up a cloud of dust for Russell Campbell Kawasaki pilot Greg Aspinall to contend with. Riding in dust requires vast amounts of concentration, and riders need to take a conservative approach. Clayton Enslin is another of the dedicated rising stars. This year he moved up to the 250 class and leads season campaigner Jeremy Davies, who follows on his Konik Shell Honda. Rian van Niekerk won the 200 class in each of the opening races and moved into an early class lead therefore. Everything was going right for Reneke and Houghton as they built up a handy production category lead. Not only that, they were also leading the race overall. Marius Bahrain's Little Class B Mighty Mag was ahead of Obert Carolyn's menacing Class A Raceco, and the narrow tracks provided few overtaking opportunities. Carolyn had been fortunate as he was allowed to complete the time trial without incurring a penalty. Nandus Alberts and Peter Mattia have had little luck of late, but their Raceco was running well in 4th place ahead of Schroeder's nimble Orco. Schilling's dust advantage of starting first turned into a nightmare as they wrong-slotted down a sugarcane-lined road and they dropped out of contention. Driving through the thick dust into the sun and slowing down the Penzor Land Rover of Cliff Barker and Heinrich Lautergan, life isn't always easy in the office for off-road races. Having largely overcome his overheating problem, Woolridge's day started badly when the Pajero lost four-wheel drive early in the event and started dropping back. The powerful Chevy of Theo Kutsia and Ian Wedderburn was running well despite Wedderburn suffering the effects of car sickness, but they were to roll out of proceedings shortly before the end. Back to the bikes, and Cox looked to be in command as he stretched the 360cc KTM's legs on the straights and built up a slight lead over his pursuers aboard 250s, who was still being led by Campbell. Then it was the relaxed-looking crew who even had time to entertain spectators with a couple of wheelies. But they had to be fast spectators. Cox's teammate Darrell Curtis was hanging in well and riding well within his limits during the early stages, a rather clever approach. After a few seasons out of the saddle while circuit car racing, this year is effectively Jeremy Davies' comeback year, and he shows that he's lost none of the skill that won him his championships. Conic Shell Honda rider Graham McLaughlin has moved up to the Big Banger 500 class, but almost threw away all his hard work there. And this was almost a coming together between KTM's Jeffrey Voliter and Kawasaki's Quinton Milton, who misjudged his pace into the corner because of the dust. A lucky escape, but he was soon on his way again. The quads had started behind the bikes, and Van Deventer on the Gulwa blonde Yamaha was setting a blistering pace as he held a narrow advantage over similarly mounted reigning champion Christo van der Merwe on the Joburg Yamaha machine. Jacques Stubbe's unique and surprisingly rapid four-stroke Jojo Tanks Honda carried him into third place. Spectacular little machines, these quads. Aubrey Kavanagh gets it wrong, but recovers quickly to blast off in a shower of stones, only to have the helpful and much amused helicopter crew point out that he's heading in the wrong direction. A case of more haste, less speed, perhaps. Proving that teammates work together, Valent Smith looks to be well in control of his blaster as he finds the correct route, but then blots his copybook by getting on the power a tad early, and he lets the rear wheel take out a fence post and a few meters of fencing. Poor farmer.